First of all, welcome everybody to our June PBCS update entitled Beat the Summer Heat with June PBCS Updates. This is a continued process here with our webinars that are happening on a monthly basis that are really highlighting the functionality of our PBCS updates. A little bit about eCapital here just to get things going. For those of you who do not know, we're a Oracle Gold partner, do a variety of different services, including business analytics, and data analytics, Oracle and IBM services as well. Here's kind of our lovely NASCAR slide here, highlighting some of the different clients that we worked at and partnered with throughout the past years. And here are our presenters for today. So myself, Ryan Kohler, and my esteemed colleague here, Bob Ussett. So we are kind of our go-to PBCS guys here at eCapital. So just to reiterate, this is our monthly webinar series where each month we will go through and highlight the key features that are included in each release, do a lot of that testing for you so that the hope will be that at the end of each month you're ready to go when we move these changes into production. So before we get started with the June updates, I wanted to just circle back to the May release and reiterate some questions that we had last month. So these were the two main questions we had. So the first one was specifically around, can we still access the classic dimension editor? So if you recall last month, the dimension editor was upgraded to more of a kind of SmartView look and feel. Now, just to reiterate, we can still access the classic dimension editor, but as we know, starting last month, the standard interface is going to start kind of being discontinued and quote unquote, unsupported. So I think eventually, the thought there is probably just the new and improved dimension editor, but for the time being, you can still access the classic dimension editor. And honestly, once you see the upgraded version, I think you're going to want to kind of gravitate to that interface anyways. The second question that we had last month was around, can we add more than just the report icons as far as your customized navigation screen? And the answer to that is yes. You can add a variety of different icons, including reports, forms, dashboards, all sorts of things. And you can embed them to kind of create a structure that's customized to a specific user. So some cool functionality there that we've highlighted in previous releases, so definitely encourage you to check out some of our past updates as well. So why don't we get into our webinar series then for today. So first of all, what is PBCS? So for those of you who are new to the webinar, we like to just highlight this here quickly. So PBCS is Oracle's planning and budgeting cloud services here. So industry best practice for budgeting and forecasting along with management reporting as well. Provides very streamlined input processes along with dashboarding and all sorts of different reporting options as well. Customized calculations, workflow, navigations, and things like that. And so we do also like to point out, don't forget about EPBCS, and that is simply the enterprise edition. And the real difference there is it's going to come with some prepackaged modules, including projects, workforce, CapEx, and financials. So just a lot of pre-built functionality there to kind of help you get up and running. So now let's get into why you're here for today. So getting into the enhancements here that have been included in the June release. Here's our trusty, planning and budgeting release readiness guide here. So as you see, the table of contents this month are pretty large. So a lot of different updates. Some small, some larger, but we'll go through these with you here one by one. And like we always do, we like to just highlight, when these changes have gotten into test and when they've gotten into production. So it's kind of been a busy month for us here, so we actually pushed the production release a few weeks for our own internal eCapital environment. So I think a few months ago we had tested that out. We had some questions around, can you push the releases? And so you certainly can, and we've proven that out again. So we'll actually end up moving into production a little bit later than this. But for those of you who are existing clients or existing PBCS subscribers, these updates actually would already be in your production environment. So the first enhancement, if you will, to this month is, first of all, a new EPM Automate utility. So a new version has come out. And so this has been pretty typical, I think, what we've found so far month over month. So we definitely encourage those of you who are using EPM Automate just to continue to download the most or the latest version each month. What they'll tend to do is kind of incorporate additional commands with those new versions. So this month, this is actually around resetting a password. So it allows you to kind of integrate some additional commands in the import snapshot screen. So pretty small update there, but again, I would encourage you to continue to download the most recent version of the EPM Automate tool. The second update for this month is around the activity reports. So, maybe 4 months ago is when these were introduced for the first time, and they've continued to add on to them and kind of make them more robust. So we have a variety of different options here now for activity reports. A couple of screenshots here showing some more details, not just showing, what users logged in and what they were accessing, but in this case, we're actually seeing a pie chart showing the percentage of, user interface requests that have been over 10 seconds, just to give the administrator of the system a quick snapshot of, how is the system performing as a whole. I think if that slice stays under 5%, that's probably good. If it starts growing, kind of tells you that you have some areas for opportunity there. This other screenshot is actually the top 30 worst performing user interface actions over 10 seconds. So just a kind of more of a consolidated list there, just a snapshot of some of those components on that list. Kind of gives you an idea of some of the different options. We have a couple other ones on the next slide here too. So this top 7 user interface requests by duration there, this is new of this month. So it kind of breaks things out into different type of activities. So in this case, you'll see, user login, delete application, export application. So a lot of different things going on in our test environment here. That might be a little atypical of a production environment, but you kind of get the concept here of how you're able to track these different activities. Another cool thing is the user's average response time by hour. So you can actually start to track this now too. Can really help, check the user base by hour as well, so you can kind of see the peak times where your application is being leveraged. And these last two are just, a different way to kind of look at some of that stuff. So top 10 most active users by usage duration, as well as the least there. So gives you some different options. One thing I'd like to point out that I think can be helpful is not only can you view the activity reports through the simplified interface, but you can actually download the access logs too, and that will just pop it up into a CSV file for you. So, if you want to, kind of try to report this more quicker or in a quicker fashion and just kind of consolidate this all into one file, pretty easy to do that there too. So the next piece here is kind of a continued trend that we've seen month over month here too. It's just really integrating all of Oracle's cloud-related products into kind of one overall stream. So this month they've included Oracle NetSuite. So Oracle acquired NetSuite 3-4 months ago, something like that. So you're now able to actually integrate with the back-end data with NetSuite into the overall Oracle Cloud Fusion products. So we were reading a little bit about this. There's not a ton of information so far, but one thing it did say is, if you do need to kind of dig in a little bit deeper here, you can also contact your NetSuite administrator to get important information around integrating that with the rest of your Oracle Cloud products. So the next feature here as part of the June release is around financial reports. So specifically, they've actually been able to change the number format on charts and the font sizes. So if you were to go into Financial Reporting Studio on the web there, directly through your PBCS application, you'll be able to actually go into your chart properties on your FR grid there, go to Format Chart, and then you'll be able to kind of move this around and select the text field to look at your different fonts and sizes. So you basically have two different options here on the Axis tab as well as the bar options. And it's kind of a similar overall look and feel, but you can kind of change that around. So if you go to the next slide here, you can actually see the bar options part of this as well, which is very similar. So really just the ability to change some of the fonts and formats there. So this next enhancement here is around our data pushes. So in the past, if you wanted to leverage data push to take data from a BSO cube and push it to your reporting cubes within PBCS, for more consolidated reporting, you'd have to kind of script this out to make sure you were clearing data before this happened. Now, when you actually click the push data here, but the push data button manually here, it'll prompt you with the ability to clear it beforehand. So instead of 2 clicks, you're really consolidating this down to 1 essentially, and then you can kind of make that decision on the fly. So really more of an interface change in general, but I think it's a good concept here is kind of a check-all before you actually complete that data push. The next enhancement here as part of the June release is around workflow. So those of you who use workflow know that there is a lot of information that is tracked or can be tracked in the behind-the-scenes tables there as far as owners and approval levels, and which scenarios and versions are being tracked as part of that workflow, and approval unit hierarchy. So in this month, they've included a approval unit status report where you can run this. It's prepackaged, and you can essentially just select your scenario and version, and then select the approval unit hierarchy if you have more than one, and it will actually spit out a report for you around the different approval statuses. So if you are using a robust workflow model, can definitely be helpful to track the usage throughout a forecasting cycle, for example. So this next enhancement, this one is actually a pretty cool one. I think something that those of you who are familiar with on-prem Hyperion planning, this is something that definitely would have come in handy multiple times, I think, this is actually looking at the period dimension here, and it's enabling usage by cube. So in the past, if you were looking at a standard dimension, something like year, period, scenario, or version, any of the members within those dimensions are going to be included in all of your different plan types or cubes. So in this case, you can actually enable a specific period here by each plan type. So I think a good example here that we have on the screenshot is bag balance, for example. I know traditionally definitely used from a balance sheet perspective, but I know a lot of times we'll use bag balance to store allocation rates or FX rates as well. In this case, though, we could actually choose to ignore bag val, from more of an income statement standpoint, or an expense standpoint if we only wanted it in a balance sheet plan type, for example. So some pretty cool functionality here. Would love to see them include and kind of expand on this to multiple dimensions. But for right now, it's been enabled just for the period dimension as far as those common dimensions are concerned. So cool functionality here. Definitely like to see this. And this next piece for the June update is just more of a support standpoint. So traditionally, Firefox has been the preferred internet provider for all kind of activities through a simplified interface. They're starting to grow this out to allow more Chrome functionality as well. So specifically here, you'd be able to actually open a SmartView grid or a form directly from Chrome, where in the past that's been a challenge. And same thing with like drill through. If you're leveraging FDME in the background to drill through into a source system or drill through into HFM, it'll actually pop this open in Chrome now as well. So you'd actually be prompted with that ERP system's login screen directly through Chrome, which is nice, as I know a lot of people gravitate more towards a kind of a Chrome setup there. So I think this is the last one that I'm going to cover here today, and then we'll pass it on to Bob for the rest of the updates. But this is also a pretty cool update for the June release here. So they're really, Oracle is really trying to have a lot of parity between the web and Excel, and so they're really moving towards enabling a lot of different functionality within Excel. So in this case, if you go ahead and download the latest version of SmartView, it will allow you then to download a template that can actually update application properties. So you can actually even create a full application now from Excel. If you look at the screenshot here in the middle of the screen, you'll see the application definition is on the active tab. Then you'll have dimensions for each, tabs for each dimension, as well as subvars, security, and some of the advanced user settings. So you can really access any of the menus that you would be able to today, on the web or the simplified interface directly from SmartView or Excel in this case. So pretty cool functionality here. Be interested to see where this goes, but certainly that parity between the web and SmartView has continued to kind of gain traction there. So, and with that, I will pass it on to Bob here to go through the remaining updates for June.
Thanks, Ryan. So to close out the updates here, so the first one that we'll talk about is within dashboarding, they have a new chart type. So historically, you've been able to build bar graphs, line graphs, some pie graphs, a lot of different options there as far as what type of charts you have available through dashboarding. They essentially just added a new chart, which they're calling the combination. And it essentially will take your data points and it will put it in both a bar and line format, depending on your data set. The example they have, in the release is if you have like different countries that are being used, it just is basically a different way to set up that chart. So not a whole lot different. Again, just different chart type. You would consume those charts through the dashboard like you would all the others, but they're basically just expanding on the different charts that are available for us visual consumers of the data. Another thing that's changed inside of the Financial Reporting Studio, outside of what Ryan was talking about with the changes to the grids, is you are now allowed to upload different fonts to FR. So you have to create your font in your font style type. So you have to set up with that RTS type to upload it. But basically from there, you're able to just log into the Web Studio right there from the file manage fonts. You're able to just find that font type that you uploaded or that you want to upload, and you're able to easily upload and then start using that in FR reporting. So, for organizations out there that really try to get to that standard look and feel of reports that have maybe a different font type than is otherwise available in FR, this is going to enable those organizations to align those reports to look similar to other reports that are built out of other applications. This next is really just a naming change. So when you first create your planning and budgeting application, there is a decision that you need to make, and really this happens as you're talking to your Oracle rep and you're deciding what licenses you want to buy. So we have the different options. The standard is that planning and budgeting cloud service that we've been talking about for months. That enterprise is the features that we generally talk about at the end, and it gives you, again, those pre-built models that Ryan discussed earlier. And there is a third type that was called light. It was just called light, and now it is called reporting. So really the only change here is they switched it from light to reporting. And again, this is a one-time setup, so for those of us that are already in there and using PBCS, you will never likely see this screen as your application is already set up. But basically, again, the reporting is like, it's going to have the least features of everything, and it's going to be more for a solution that doesn't need complexity around planning. Maybe you really only need reporting, whereas your enterprise option, again, with those extra features of the pre-built models, are going to be the solution for someone that's looking for a more complex, more inclusive process into their planning and budgeting cloud service. So minor update, really at the end of the day, just changing a name to a button that you click when you set up your application. The next two are really similar as far as what we're going to talk about. So they, again, as of last month, which they seem to be doing a really great job of lately, is they've updated their application design guidelines. So again, they're just going through, they're taking that Oracle documentation and they're beefing it up. They've been doing that each month. They've been doing that for a while. And the documentation actually this month I have found to be even more helpful than other updates. There's even more screenshots available for different things. In previous releases, a lot of times that the Oracle documentation may not have even included information on some of the release items, whereas this month they've gotten a lot better about that. I mean, the documentation just overall, in general, has been a lot more inclusive of what the product is and how to work with it. So they really have been making good strides around that. And right along that same path, which essentially is another way to view that Oracle documentation, is those same updates they're making into that administrator guide or the Oracle technical documentation they're incorporating into the Academy, which again you get, as part of your subscription to planning, the planning budgeting cloud service. And again, tons of access again to documentation and videos, how-tos, and again, just like with the other one, they've done a great job of keeping up with the newest releases and even adding some things that were lacking before, and they're just improving that every month. Another change now that Oracle has made is you are no longer able to upload data or metadata from executable file types. So in the past, I don't know anyone that has ever done this or would need to do this, but you technically had the ability to upload data and metadata through executables, batches, or shell scripting, like a shell script. And those are technically executable files. Like those could contain things that could technically infect the environment. I mean, we had some things in the news recently about getting infected with software and things like that. So this is basically a way for Oracle to protect their environment, protect our environments, to make sure they do not get infected with any type of malware. And so instead, what you have to do is you have to load data using your standard text file types. So your TXTs, your CSVs, like those are still going to be allowed. Those have always been recommended. Again, I don't think we've ever seen an implementation where they've been using executables to upload this, but we just need to know now going forward that will not be an option. So that rounds out all the features for our standard planning and budgeting cloud service. So the rest of them now are going to be specific only to the enterprise option. So again, these are going to be more these will all be enhancements that directly impact project financials, workforce, and or capital. Some impact all of them, some will impact others more, some more than others. So the first one is pretty interesting here. So this first one, you now have another modeling type, I guess we could call it, that you are able to enable. You're now able to enable what's called strategic modeling. And what this essentially is it's the replacement for Hyperion Strategic Finance in the Planning Budgeting Cloud Service. So with this, you're able to just log in and you would configure this just like you would any other financial workforce, capital projects, any of those other pre-built models. You just go in there, enable them, and that's really the end of that process. You just click that Click Enable feature, you're done. There's no other steps like there were before. to enable it. It's very easy to enable, and you can see when you enable it, you will now have another button on your home page that has that strategic modeling. And really what it's going to do when you set this up is you're allowed to now go in and create models that are really more used to be focused on a long-term type of planning scenario. So it's going to integrate with all of your existing enterprise forms and reports. So anything that's part, again, of those 4 out-of-box models, it's going to integrate with those, and it's going to allow us as users to go in and by different scenarios that you want to set up. You can set high-level drivers or assumptions to kind of change what a long-range plan would look like, how forecasting 10, 20, 30, 40 years out. And it allows you to do it at a much higher driver-based level instead of having to go in and manipulate data at the lower levels that a lot of us are accustomed to doing during like a current forecast or budget cycle. This is replacing a whole product, and it's hard to do to do it justice completely in this webinar. So we're anticipating setting up another webinar to kind of go through this, because again, they are really replacing a whole product in itself. And again, even though they're replacing that product, it is going to be free now for anyone with an enterprise license. You are now going to get it as part of your subscription. So we're going to look in the future to expand on this product a little bit more, try to get some use cases where it can be really helpful for organizations. But again, in the time we're given today, we just don't think we can do justice to the product that they've included in this release. But definitely interesting stuff. It's really great how easy it is to integrate with the existing forms and reports. And we are really looking forward to digging into that tool more and seeing how it interacts in the same way that the strategic finance tool did in the past. So another change to enterprise option is you can now write business rules in Groovy. So I know we had covered this a couple months back where you were able to write business rules in Groovy. You were not able to do that in some of the the non-custom out-of-box models. But this now basically allows for you to do that. So there's information on this right in the Academy for how to write Groovy. I know a lot of us that have on-prem Hyperion planning really have not done much of this. Like the use case is definitely there, but I think a lot of times we've found ways to maybe get around creating Groovy scripts. But when you do it, it's really going to expand what your usage of the application is going to be. So instead of just writing a rule that's going to calculate account A plus account B is going to equal account C, you're going to be able to do a lot of things like when someone saves on this form, it's going to lock another form, for example. It can do very out-of-the-box type thinking things if you, in your planning process, an organization is really looking to do that. So basically, now those enterprise models are going to be available to write our scripting in that language. The next one here is also something, so along with integration of NetSuite, which Ryan talked about earlier, they also are integrating human capital management into Workforce. I know this was something that we, again, discussed a couple months ago, that they did already have this integration where from your HCM system, you're going to be able to pull your employee names and salaries and possibly positions or bonuses that are planned. You're able to take data from that system and just using the data management, which is a free product that comes with your subscription to the enterprise solution, you're now able to seamlessly move data between those two. So again, we had talked about this before. This is not a completely new feature, but they have expanded some of those categories and those things within human capital that you can now load into Workforce. So they're just looking for a deeper integration. They have a deeper integration process between their two cloud products. Another nice thing, and this is actually a very nice feature for when you're enabling your additional features within those pre-built models, it'll actually give you additional checks as you're doing that. So, one thing right off the bat that it's going to do when you're in the process of enabling some type of new feature that maybe in your Workforce model, you're going to enable a new, instead of just planning by employee, you could also plan by job title. It'll actually go through the process of locking that application so nobody can make changes to it. So that's an example of like a minor changes through it, but it's also going to go through more checks on the back end to make sure that you're selecting correct things that will keep your application in a valid format. So it's basically just putting more checks and balances around some of those things, which, for those of us that have enabled these modules, it's somewhat easy with the TurboTax type process where you just select this button, and it kind of builds everything in the background. But, there's times when you do something that you maybe didn't mean to, or the application would never expect those type of options to be selected together. It's going to give you a little bit more information around why some of those features aren't going to enable, where in the past, if you kind of had a bad setup when you're trying to set up, you're really stuck in a tough spot A lot of times you may just have to delete the application and kind of start from the beginning. So it's been nice that they've added a few more checks into enabling some of these features. And that does it for all of our features. So that was 20 of them. That's probably the biggest list of enhancements that I think Ryan or I have seen in past memory, at least. You know, a lot of them aren't that big of a deal. You know, documentation, features updates, not that impactful or nothing to really be worried about. But overall, a pretty big list this month. So with that, we're moving into support updates. So as usual, you've got to get off the standard interface, that classic interface, not supported at the end of this year. There's so much more available now in the simplified. There's really no reason for anyone not to be using it. I know change is an ugly word, but we should all be getting there. The offerings in it are just blowing away anything that's standard interface. We highly recommend everyone get in there yesterday. This one, you know, this one's over and done with. This technically was no longer supported in May, but you can, again, we've hammered this one to death. You cannot use the desktop PEPFAR reporting studio. You have to use the web reporting studio. Hammer this to death. This technically was done in May. Everyone should be converted at this point. I mean, at some point, I'm sure they're going to disable logins through the desktop client. So if you're struggling with this, let's definitely figure out a plan to get you in the web studio ASAP. Finally, the last one that's on that list here is the integration between the Fusion Financials and Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. So again, this is all done through data management, which again, as we've talked about, is a free product with your standard, light, or enterprise subscription. And it basically will allow you to push data fairly easily between those Fusion products and our Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. So, and really they're retiring the file-based process, and they want you to move to data management by September 22nd, which is a September release. So for those of us that are interacting with those two cloud products, the flat file, strongly recommend we start looking at this now, as they are going to retire that integration functionality. I do want to briefly talk about one additional thing here. So this is not going to be in your release notes that we have here, but this is actually a webcast that Oracle gave to its partner network. And basically, in the near future, they are going to come out with an enhancement that is going to allow us to connect across pods from a single interface of an application. So what I mean by that is, if you have purchased a cloud subscription, you have access to one application that hits a very specific URL. And if you were a company that needed two applications, you would have two totally distinct separate applications. To log in to one, you would have to log out of the other. It would be a different web URL. Same thing with SmartView, it would be a different SmartView URL. They are going to come out, and it's been long awaited. I know a lot of organizations have been waiting for this, where you can now connect to multiple pods from one login interface. So you see in the top left, it's going to be a new button in our home screen where you can then connect, and you can see all the different Oracle Cloud products that are available there. They are then able to interact with and set up and connect from that one place. And then down in the bottom right, you can see from the navigator, you're able to easily jump between your different cloud pods or cloud instances. You're able to have mashups, as it's saying down there. So, you know, using the functionality that Ryan had talked about last week, where you can set up a new button or card for a specific web form or report or business rule or all those different things, you can now mash those up into one interface where you're going to be able to interact with it. And then on top of it, you're able to set up any dashboarding or anything like that, and it's all going to be able to go across those pods seamlessly, and a user does not, you know, need to log out, log back in. You can get all your data in one place. So this is something that us at eCapital are very excited about. This expands the usage of the planning and budgeting solution extensively for organizations that have app farms, I like to call it, or multiple applications. It was going to be very difficult to adopt the planning and budgeting cloud service when you were stuck within one pod. But this feature, which details on exactly when this has come out, is still unknown. This webcast was actually last week, so it's still very new. Even us at eCapital haven't had hands-on chance to play with this yet. But we just wanted to call this out. We think this is really exciting. I think this can really expand the use case of the planning and budgeting cloud service, and really, you know, give you as an organization, if you ever need to expand and grow within the product, it's going to give you a way to easily do that with minimal impact to end users. So that's the webinar for this month. Again, we appreciate everyone joining. We're happy to review these updates and give them to you. So, you know, we take several hours each month to review these updates, and we try to condense it down under an hour, so you know what's changing in your environment. You can be well informed. And with that, you see a couple of questions have rolled through. Ryan, I don't know if you want to take this first one. I think it's related to your topic here.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bob. So the first question is around the downloadable Excel workbook template. So this user is asking, can we load data from that SmartView downloadable template as well? So good question. I'm not sure if I covered this in the overview, but yes, you actually can load data from that template as well. So just to reiterate, you can edit the dimensions, define application properties, can define security and access permissions, as well as substitution variables, and you can load data from that template as well. Maybe one thing I didn't point out is you can actually delete applications from that too, so just be careful if you're playing around with that you don't unintentionally delete an application here. I think we have one other question. Maybe Bob, you can handle this one. The question is specifically around the strategic finance modeling. Is that available in PBCS, the standard edition?
Yeah, so that is not available in the standard edition. So again, that is another configuration item. So as I talked about, it's a configuration item similar to those other 4 out-of-box modeling. And when you enable that, which again is a very easy process to enable it, it really is only going to integrate with those enterprise forms and reports. So again, only users that are not only have enterprise planning, budgeting, cloud licenses, but are also fully leveraging those models in a way that would be consistent to help them get to a long-range plan. Those are really going to be the users that benefit from this enhancement, because it just won't integrate with custom plan types or reporting, custom planning plan types or custom reporting plan types.
Good deal. I think that's all the questions we have today. So we thank you again for joining our PBCS updates, specifically the June PBCS updates, and look forward to talking to everybody next month.